Adebayo's heart tightened. He knew what this meant, the fragile thread of connection growing between them, defying the chasm of their worlds. He was a king in Lagos elite circles, his name opening doors from Ikoyi to Abuja. She was a hawker, her life measured in naira earned from sachet water, her dreams tucked into a battered notebook. Yet, in her presence, his wealth felt like a shadow, irrelevant against her fire. Ifioma, he said, his voice low. Hello, bestie. Please stay with me as I unfold this interesting romantic story. If you enjoy the story, please support us by subscribing to this channel and hit the notification button for more. Thank you. Grab your popcorn, sit back, relax, and enjoy this story. The Lagos sky was a bruised canvas, heavy with clouds that unleashed a torrent over the city. Rain battered the asphalt of Third Mainland Bridge, turning the road into a shimmering mirror of brake lights and impatience. Horns blared in a chaotic symphony, blending with the rhythmic slap of wiper blades and the distant hum of a street hawker's radio crooning Fela Kuti's Water No Get Enemy. Inside his sleek black Mercedes G-Wagon, Adebayo Ogunleye, 38, sat in the back seat, his tailored charcoal suit pristine despite the city's clamor. His phone glowed with a flurry of emails, contracts for his tech startup's latest app launch, proposals for a new estate in Lekki, updates on his foundation's outreach. As CEO of Ogunleye Enterprises, his name was etched in Lagos skyline, from glass towers to billboards touting innovation for a new Nigeria. Yet, as the car inched through traffic, Adebayo's sharp brown eyes were distant, his jaw tight with a restlessness no boardroom victory could soothe. He was a man who had everything: wealth, influence, a penthouse in Ikoyi with a view of the Atlantic's restless waves. Born to a Yoruba trader mother and a lawyer father, Adebayo had clawed his way from a modest upbringing in Surulere to the pinnacle of Lagos elite, his ambition fueled by a hunger to prove himself. But at 38, the thrill of deals had dulled. Late-night whiskey in his sterile office couldn't fill the hollow space in his chest. A longing for something raw, something real, beyond the polished veneer of his world. He glanced out the tinted window, rain streaking the glass like tears, and sighed. Musa, how long till we're through this mess? He asked his driver, a wiry man with a quick smile. Na Lagos, Oga, Musa replied, his voice tinged with the patience of a man used to the city's whims. Rain fit hold us another hour. Adebayo nodded, resigned, and returned to his phone, but a flicker of movement under the bridge's shadow caught his eye. The Third Mainland Bridge, Africa's longest, stretched like a concrete spine over the lagoon, its underpass a grim refuge for those the city had forgotten. There, amidst the gloom, stood a young woman, her thin frame hunched against the rain's assault. A tattered shawl clung to her shoulders, soaked through, and her bare feet pressed against the muddy ground. She clutched a plastic bag, her only shield against the deluge, yet her posture held a quiet defiance, as if daring the storm to break her. Adebayo's breath caught. Something about her, her stillness, her resilience in the face of such raw vulnerability, stirred him. He'd seen countless hawkers and homeless souls in Lagos, their faces blurring into the city's chaotic tapestry. But this woman was different. Her eyes, barely visible under the dripping shawl, seemed to hold a story that tugged at him. Musa, pull over, he said, surprising himself. Musa glanced back, eyebrows raised. Oga, here? Na Floodo, and this place no safe. Adebayo waved off the concern, already reaching for his umbrella. Just for a minute, the car eased to the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. Adebayo stepped out, the rain drumming against his umbrella, soaking the hem of his trousers. The air smelled of wet earth and diesel, and the distant rumble of traffic vibrated through the bridge's concrete pillars. He approached the woman slowly, careful not to startle her. Up close, she was younger than Head thought, perhaps in her early 20s, her dark skin glistening with rain, her cheekbones sharp from hunger or hardship, her eyes, wide and wary, locked onto his, and he saw a flicker of defiance beneath the exhaustion. Good evening, he said. His deep voice softened to counter the storm's roar. He held out the umbrella, offering her its shelter. You're getting soaked. She straightened, clutching her bag tighter, her gaze narrowing. "I don't need pity," she snapped, her voice cutting through the rain. Thick with an Eastern accent, Igbo, he guessed. Her words were a shield, and Adebayo admired the fire in them. "Not pity," he replied, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Just a dry spot for a moment." Adebayo. She studied him, her eyes flicking from his polished shoes to the expensive watch glinting on his wrist. "Ifeoma," she said finally, her tone grudging but curious. He nodded, holding the umbrella higher to shield her. "Ifeoma, you hungry? There's a buka nearby. My treat." She hesitated, pride wrestling with the rumble in her stomach. Then, with a small nod, she stepped closer, and Adebayo felt a spark of something unfamiliar. Hope, perhaps, or the stirrings of a connection he couldn't yet name. They walked to a nearby roadside stall, its tin roof rattling under the rain. Over steaming plates of egusi soup and pounded yam, Ifeoma's guard softened. She spoke sparingly, but each word carried weight. Tales of a village lost to fire, a dream of teaching children, a life carved from survival. Adebayo listened, captivated, his own world of boardrooms and contracts fading. When he handed her his business card and a takeaway pack of food, she accepted with a quiet thank you, her fingers brushing his. As he drove away, her silhouette under the bridge lingered in his mind, a puzzle he was determined to solve. The rain fell harder, but Adebayo's heart felt lighter than it had in years. The rain had softened to a drizzle by the time Ifeoma returned to her corner under the third mainland bridge, the plastic takeaway pack from Adebayo warm against her chest. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the faint tang of lagoon water, mingling with the acrid smoke of a nearby Acra seller's fire. The underpass was a jagged world of shadows, its concrete pillars scarred with graffiti and littered with plastic bottles, wrappers, and the dreams of those who called it home. Ifeoma settled onto her makeshift bed, a threadbare mat layered with cardboard, tucking the food beneath her shawl to keep it dry. Her fingers traced the edges of Adebayo's business card, its crisp surface alien in her calloused hands. Ogunlai Enterprises, it read, the name heavy with a Lagos kind of power. She tucked it into her plastic bag, alongside a faded photo of her parents and a dog-eared notebook filled with half-written lesson plans. Ifeoma was 23, but the weight of her years felt heavier. Born in a small village in Anambra, she had grown up under the shade of mango trees, her laughter echoing through dusty paths as she played with her younger brother, Chi Jayok. Her mother, a schoolteacher, had filled her head with stories of Chinua Achebe and dreams of shaping young minds. Her father, a yam farmer, taught her to stand tall, even when the world bent low. But 3 years ago, a fire had swept through their village, sparked by a neighbor's careless lantern. It devoured their home, their farm, and her family. Ifeoma, away at a market in Onitsha, returned to ashes and grief. At 20, she was an orphan, her dreams of university and teaching buried under the rubble. Lagos had called to her like a siren, promising opportunity. She had arrived with a small bag and big hopes, but the city was a beast with sharp teeth. Jobs were scarce for a girl with no connections and only a secondary school certificate. Shed tried waitressing, cleaning, even braiding hair in Oshodi Market, but the pay barely covered a meal. Now, she survived by selling sachet water during the day, weaving through Lagos traffic with a tray balanced on her head, her voice hoarse from shouting, "Pure water, 50 naira." At night, the underpass was her refuge, shared with others like her. Hawkers, runaways, dreamers chewed up by the city. They formed a loose family, sharing food and stories, but Ifeoma kept her heart guarded. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Yet Adebayo's face lingered in her mind, his warm smile cutting through her defenses. Head looked at her not with pity, but with something else, curiosity, maybe respect. His offer of food and that umbrella had felt like a bridge to a world she had only glimpsed in telenovelas on shop TVs. But Ifeoma was no fool. Men in shiny cars often wanted something, and Shed learned to dodge their promises. Still, his eyes had held no malice, only a quiet hunger that mirrored her own. not for food, but for connection. She opened the takeaway pack, the aroma of a goosey soup and pounded yam flooding her senses. It was her first hot meal in days, and as she ate, she let herself imagine, just for a moment, a life beyond the bridge. The underpass stirred with life as others returned. Emeka, a teenage hawker who dreamed of being a footballer. Mama Ngozi, a widow who sold roasted corn and muttered prayers, and Tund, a wiry scavenger who told bawdy jokes to mask his pain. Ifeoma shared bits of her meal, their chatter a shield against the night's chill. "Who give you this kind food, eh?" Tund teased, eyeing the takeaway pack. Ifeoma shrugged, her smile cryptic. "Somebody with a good heart." But her thoughts drifted to Adebayo's card, tucked safely away. She didn't know why she kept it, but something about his voice, steady, kind, made her want to believe in second chances. As she lay on her mat, the distant rumble of cars overhead lulling her, Ifeoma's mind wandered to her old notebook. In it, Shed scribbled lesson plans for a classroom she might never have, teaching children to read, to dream, to stand tall like her father taught her. Shed once believed she could change lives, but Lagos had ground that hope thin. Yet Adebayo's gesture, small as it was, sparked a flicker of possibility. Maybe the city wasn't all sharp edges. Maybe, just maybe, there was room for her dreams under this unforgiving bridge. She closed her eyes, the taste of a goosey lingering, and whispered a prayer her mother used to say, "Let tomorrow be kinder than today." The Lagos sun blazed high the next afternoon, turning the third mainland bridge into a shimmering ribbon of heat and hustle. Adebayo Ogunlai sat in his air-conditioned office on Victoria Island, a glass tower that gleamed like a beacon of his success. The view stretched across the lagoon, where ferries churned through water the color of brewed tea. But his mind wasn't on the contracts piled on his mahogany desk or the board meeting looming at noon. Instead, it wandered to Ifeoma, her sharp tongue, her defiant eyes, the way Shed held his business card like it was both a lifeline and a trap. Head spent the night replaying their conversation, her words cutting through the noise of his polished life. Why had he stopped for her? He couldn't say, but the pull was undeniable, like a tide dragging him back to the underpass. By dusk, he was back on the bridge, his Mercedes weaving through hawkers balancing trays of plantain chips and gala sausages. Musa, his driver, shot him a knowing glance through the rearview mirror. "Oga, this na second time in 2 days. You sure say you no lost something for that bridge?" Adebayo chuckled, adjusting his cufflinks. "Maybe I found something instead." He carried a nylon bag with a styrofoam pack of jollof rice and fried chicken from a buka in Yaba, its spicy aroma already seeping through. He told himself it was a simple gesture, helping someone in need, but his quickening pulse betrayed him. This wasn't charity. It was something deeper, something he wasn't ready to name. Under the bridge, the air was cooler but heavy with the musk of damp concrete and the faint tang of fish from the lagoon. The underpass buzzed with its usual rhythm. A boy strummed a battered guitar, singing an off-key version of Burna Boy's. A woman roasted corn over a charcoal fire, its smoke curling upward, and a group of kids kicked a deflated football, their laughter echoing off the pillars. Ifeoma was there, sitting on her mat, her plastic bag tucked beside her. She wore a faded Ankara blouse, its vibrant blues dulled by time, and her hair was pulled back in neat cornrows, revealing the sharp angles of her face. She was scribbling in her notebook, her brow furrowed in concentration, unaware of Adebayo's approach until his shadow fell over her. She looked up, her eyes narrowing with that familiar wariness. "You again," she said, her voice laced with mock exasperation, though a faint smile betrayed her. "What now, rich man? You lost or you just like this bridge too much?" Adebayo grinned, holding up the food. "Thought you might be hungry. Jollof rice, straight from Mama T.S. Best in Yaba." Ifeoma's stomach growled audibly, and she rolled her eyes, taking the bag. "You're spoiling me, Adebayo. I don't trust people who give too much." But she opened the pack, the steam rising like a warm promise, and gestured for him to sit on a nearby crate. They ate together, the crate creaking under Adebayo's weight, the city's hum a backdrop to their conversation. Ifeoma spoke of her village nights, how she'd lie under the stars with her brother, making up stories about the constellations. We called Orion the hunter, she said, her voice softening. Chi Jiok swore he'd kill a lion one day, like in the stories. Adebayo listened, captivated by the way her face lit up, the grief in her eyes softened by memory. He shared his own stories, growing up in Surulere, where his mother, Alhaja Rizakat, sold fabrics in Balagan Market while preaching discipline. How he'd coded his first app at 19, a clunky game that earned him his first million. Ifeoma raised an eyebrow, teasing, "So you're a big man because you made a game?" Nah wow. Her laughter was like music, raw and unguarded. And Adebayo found himself laughing too, the sound foreign in his throat. He was used to calculated conversations, boardroom negotiations, society galas where every smile was a transaction. But with Ifeoma, there was no pretense. She challenged him, unafraid to call him out when he bragged about his latest deal. "You think money solves everything?" she asked, licking sauce from her fingers. "Money buys food, but it doesn't buy peace." He nodded, struck by her wisdom, earned not in classrooms but in the crucible of survival. Over the next weeks, Adebayo's visits became a quiet ritual. He'd leave his office early, trading glass towers for the gritty underpass, bringing Accra one day, Puff Puff the next, always with an excuse that it was on his way. Ifeoma accepted his gifts but never his pity. Her pride a wall he admired more each day. They talked for hours about her dream to teach, his pressure to maintain his empire, the way Lagos both broke and built dreams. Once, she showed him her notebook, its pages filled with lesson plans for children she might never teach. "This is my heart," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Adebayo touched the page, his fingers grazing hers, and felt a jolt, like the city's pulse had synced with his own. But the bridge wasn't just their sanctuary. It was a reminder of the chasm between their worlds. Adebayo's driver, Musa, began to murmur warnings about gossip in high places. His mother's calls grew sharper, questioning his late nights. "You're not a boy, Adebayo," she'd say. "Mind your name." He brushed it off, but Ifeoma sensed the weight. One evening, as they shared a bottle of malt under the bridge's dim glow, she fixed him with a steady gaze. "Why do you keep coming back, Adebayo? This place isn't for you." He leaned closer, his voice low but firm. "Maybe it's exactly where I'm supposed to be." Her eyes softened, but she didn't reply. And in that silence, Adebayo felt the pull of the bridge stronger than ever. A pull toward her, toward a life he hadn't known he wanted. The Lagos night was alive with a restless energy, the third mainland bridge pulsing with the distant glow of headlights and the rhythmic thrum of cars overhead. Under the bridge, the air was cooler, thick with the scent of damp concrete, roasted maize from a nearby vendor, and the faint saltiness of the lagoon breeze. The underpass, usually a cacophony of survival, hawkers' calls, the clatter of scavengers sorting through debris, the laughter of children chasing a makeshift ball, had settled into a rare quiet. A full moon hung low, casting silver light through the gaps in the bridge's structure, painting the concrete pillars in soft, dappled patterns. Ifeoma sat on her mat, her knees drawn up, her faded Ankara skirt catching the moonlight. Beside her, Adebayo perched on a rickety crate, his tailored blazer discarded on the ground, his white shirt rolled up at the sleeves. A styrofoam pack of suya sat between them, its spicy, smoky aroma mingling with the night air, the grilled meat still warm from the vendor's fire. It had been 3 weeks since Adebayo first stopped his car in the rain, and his visits to the underpass had become a rhythm as steady as Lagos' heartbeat. Each evening, he'd arrive with an offering, puff puff, boiled yam, or tonight's suya, his excuses growing flimsier with each trip. "I was passing by," he'd say, but Ifeoma's knowing smile called his bluff. Their conversations had deepened, weaving through her memories of Anambra's starry skies and his tales of coding apps in his Surulere bedroom as a teenager. Tonight, though, the air felt charged, as if the city itself sensed a shift. Ifeoma was in a playful mood, teasing Adebayo about his clumsy attempt to speak Igbo earlier that day. You said no like you're choking on pepper soup. She laughed, her voice bright, her eyes catching the moonlight like polished onyx. Adebayo grinned, leaning back on the crate, his usual polish softened by her presence. Give me a break, Ifeoma. Yoruba flows better on my tongue. He tried again, mangling another Igbo greeting, and her laughter rang out, sharp and unguarded, echoing off the pillars. It was a sound that unraveled him, peeling back the layers of his billionaire persona. Boardroom strategies, society galas, the weight of his mother's expectations. Here, under the bridge, he was just Adebayo, a man captivated by a woman who saw through his wealth to the heart beneath. Ifeoma reached for a piece of suya, her fingers brushing his as she handed him a skewer. The touch lingered, a spark that made the air hum. They fell into a comfortable silence, the kind that held more meaning than words. The suya was nearly gone, the paper stained with oil. When Ifeoma spoke, her voice softer now. Back in my village, we'd sit under the moonlight like this, telling stories. My mother said the moon listens, keeps your secrets. Adebayo turned to her, his gaze steady. What secret would you tell it tonight? She hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of her mat, her eyes distant. That I'm scared, she admitted, barely above a whisper. Scared to hope, scared to believe in. This, she gestured vaguely between them, her vulnerability raw against the bridge's grit. Adebayo's heart tightened. He knew what this meant, the fragile thread of connection growing between them, defying the chasm of their worlds. He was a king in Lagos elite circles, his name opening doors from Ikoyi to Abuja. She was a hawker, her life measured in naira earned from sachet water, her dreams tucked into a battered notebook. Yet, in her presence, his wealth felt like a shadow, irrelevant against her fire. Ifeoma, he said, his voice low, I'm here because you make me feel alive. Not the CEO, not the name, just me. Her eyes met his, searching, and for a moment, the world shrank to the space between them. The moonlight seemed to hold its breath as Adebayo leaned closer, his hand hovering near hers, asking permission. Ifeoma's lips parted, her breath catching, and she leaned in, meeting him halfway. Their kiss was tentative at first, a brush of lips tasting of suya spice and courage, then deeper, a quiet explosion of longing. The bridge, with its dripping water and distant car horns, faded away. For that moment it was just them, two souls finding each other in the shadows. Ifeoma pulled back, her eyes wide, a shy smile breaking through. Your trouble, Adebayo, she whispered, her voice trembling with laughter and something more. He laughed, the sound raw and free, his heart pounding like a D-gem drum. The best kind, he replied, his thumb brushing her cheek. They sat there, the suya forgotten, the moonlight wrapping them in its glow. The underpass, once a place of despair, felt sacred now, its concrete walls bearing witness to a spark that could ignite a fire. But as they shared a final piece of suya, Ifeoma's smile faltered. This can't be easy, you and me, she said, her voice laced with the weight of their realities. Adebayo took her hand, his grip firm. Nothing worth having is easy, Ifeoma. In the distance, a vendor's radio played Davido's Fall, its lyrics of love echoing their unspoken promise, and the bridge held them close, a sanctuary for a love just beginning to bloom. The Lagos morning was a riot of sound and color, the sun blazing over the third mainland bridge as hawkers wove through traffic, their voices rising above the honk of Danfo buses and the rumble of Okadas. Ifeoma stood under the bridge, her plastic bag slung over her shoulder, her faded Ankara wrapper tied tightly around her waist. The underpass smelled of roasted plantain and motor oil, its concrete pillars humming with the city's pulse. Shed spent the night replaying Adebayo's latest visit, his warm eyes and easy laughter lingering like the aftertaste of the suya they'd shared. Their kiss under the moonlight had shifted something in her, a spark of hope she hadn't dared to feel since her village burned. But hope was a dangerous thing in Lagos, a city that chewed up dreams and spat out survivors. She clutched her notebook, its pages filled with lesson plans for a classroom she might never have, and steeled herself for another day selling sachet water in the scorching heat. Adebayo's Mercedes rolled up just after noon, its sleek black frame a stark contrast to the underpass grit. He stepped out, dressed in a crisp agbada, the embroidered fabric catching the sun, his presence drawing curious glances from the bridge's dwellers. Ifeoma's heart skipped, but she masked it with a raised eyebrow. "You're early today, rich man," she teased, balancing her water tray. "Don't you have big meetings to run?" Adebayo smiled, his eyes crinkling with a warmth that disarmed her. "Meetings can wait. I came to talk." He held up a bag of akara, the fried bean cakes still warm, their aroma cutting through the diesel haze. "But first, food." They sat on her mat, sharing the akara, its crispy edges crumbling as they talked. Adebayo's visits had become a lifeline, but Ifeoma's pride bristled at the thought of depending on him. Shed survived Lagos' sharp edges by her own grit, and she wouldn't trade one cage for another, no matter how kind his eyes were. Sensing her unease, Adebayo leaned forward, his voice earnest. "Ifeoma, you can't stay here forever. This bridge, it's not safe, not for you." She stiffened, her jaw tight. "I've managed fine without you, Adebayo. I don't need saving." He nodded, respecting her fire. "I know you don't, but what if I offered you a way to build your dreams instead?" He spoke of his foundation, Ogunlai Cares. A non-profit head started to quiet his mother's nagging about giving back. It ran programs for street children, literacy classes, vocational training, meals for the hungry. "We need someone like you," he said, his gaze steady. "Someone who understands these kids, who can teach them, inspire them. You'd be perfect." Ifeoma's eyes widened, her fingers tightening around her notebook. The idea of teaching again, of shaping young minds like her mother had, lit a fire in her chest. But doubt crept in. "Why me? I'm nobody, Adebayo. No degree, no fancy address." He shook his head, his voice firm. "You're somebody to me, and to those kids you'd be everything." She hesitated, her mind racing. Accepting meant stepping into his world, a place of glass offices and polished shoes, where she'd feel like an intruder. But the bridge offered no future, only survival, and her dreams were too big for its shadows. "I'll do it," she said finally, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. "But I earn my keep. No handouts." Adebayo's smile was brighter than the Lagos sun. "Deal." The next day, Ifeoma stepped into the Ogunlai Cares office in Yaba, a modest building buzzing with energy. The walls were lined with children's drawings, and the air smelled of chalk, dust, and hope. She wore a borrowed blouse from Mama Ngozi, her underpass neighbor, its vibrant green a stark contrast to her usual faded wraps. The staff, a mix of young idealists and seasoned social workers, welcomed her cautiously, their eyes flicking to her worn sandals. Adebayo introduced her as a program assistant, his pride evident, but Ifeoma felt the weight of their stares. She was an outsider, a bridge girl in a world of credentials. Yet, when she stood before a group of street kids, their faces mirroring her own hunger for more, she found her voice. She taught them to read simple words, her mother's patience guiding her, and their eager eyes erased her doubts. Adebayo watched from the doorway, his heart swelling. Ifeoma was a force, her voice firm yet kind, her laughter drawing smiles from even the shyest child. Head offered her a room in one of his properties, but Shed refused, insisting on renting a small room in Yaba with her first paycheck. "I stand on my own," Shed said, and he admired her more for it. Their evenings became a new ritual, planning lessons over bottles of malt at a roadside buka, their laughter mingling with the sizzle of frying yam. But whispers followed them. The foundation staff gossiped about the CEO's pet project, and Adebayo's driver, Musa, warned of rumors reaching high society. "Oga, Lagos talks, oh," he said. "They're saying you're mixing with the wrong kind." Adebayo ignored the chatter, but Ifeoma felt its sting. One evening, as they sat in the office after hours, the fluorescent lights casting a soft glow, she turned to him, her eyes searching. "This job, this chance. It's more than I've had in years. But you and me, it's complicated. Isn't it?" Adebayo took her hand, his thumb tracing her knuckles. Let it be complicated, Iphioma. You're worth it. She smiled, a mix of fear and hope, and in that moment, the bridge's shadows seemed far away, replaced by the promise of a path they'd walk together. The Lagos skyline glittered under the evening sun, its glass towers reflecting the ambition that fueled the city's heart. In his Ikoyi penthouse, Adebayo Ogunlai stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of palm wine in hand, the tangy aroma grounding him amidst the sterile elegance of his home. Below, the lagoon shimmered, and the distant hum of Third Mainland Bridge traffic carried memories of Iphioma. Her sharp wit, her quiet strength, the electric warmth of their kiss under the bridge's moonlight. 3 months had passed since that night, and their connection had grown through stolen moments at the Ogunlai Care's office in Yaba and shared meals at roadside bukas. Iphioma's new role as a program assistant had transformed her, her eyes bright with purpose as she taught street children to read, her laughter filling the foundation's modest rooms. Yet, as Adebayo sipped his drink, a knot of unease tightened in his chest. Lagos, with its sharp tongue and sharper eyes, was beginning to notice. The whispers had started small, like ripples in the lagoon, but they were growing into waves. At a recent gala in Banana Island, where Lagos elites sipped champagne and traded power moves, Adebayo had overheard murmurs. Ogunlai's spending too much time in Yaba, a real estate mogul had said, his tone dripping with disdain. What's he doing with that bridge girl? A society matron, her geli towering like a crown, had leaned in, her voice a conspiratorial hiss. Charity is one thing, but this? It's unbecoming. Adebayo had brushed it off with a charming smile, deflecting with talk of his foundation's impact, but the words stung. His world, built on boardroom deals and high society approval, was colliding with Iphioma's, and the friction was palpable. The sharpest critique came from his mother, Alhaja Rizakat, a formidable woman whose journey from Balagan market trader to matriarch of the Ogunlai name commanded respect. She sat across from him now in the penthouse's living room, her Ankara wrapper vibrant against the cream leather sofa, her gold bangles clinking as she stirred her tea. Adebayo, you're a king in this city, she said, her voice low but edged with steel. Your name opens doors, builds empires. But this girl, this Iphioma, she's from the streets. People are talking and they're not kind. You must choose wisely, or you'll tarnish everything we've built. Adebayo's jaw tightened, his fingers gripping the glass. She's not just some girl, Mama. She's brilliant, strong. She's changing lives at the foundation. Rizakat's eyes softened, but her resolve didn't waver. Love is sweet, but legacy is sweeter. Think, my son. At the foundation, Iphioma felt the weight of those whispers too. The staff's initial curiosity had turned to sidelong glances, their smiles tight when Adebayo lingered to watch her teach. One afternoon, as she organized books in the classroom, she overheard 2 workers by the water cooler. She's good with the kids, but why's Oga always here? Is she his project or his girlfriend? The words cut deeper than Iphioma let on. Shed fought to earn her place, her lessons sparking light in the eyes of children who'd known only hunger. But to some, she was still the bridge girl, a charity case riding Adebayo's coattails. She buried the hurt, focusing on her students, but it lingered like the ache of an old wound. That evening, Adebayo arrived at the foundation with a bag of boli and groundnuts, the roasted plantain's smoky scent filling the office. Iphioma was grading papers, her cornrows tucked under a headscarf, her face lit by a desk lamp. The room was quiet, save for the hum of a ceiling fan and the distant beat of Afrobeats from a nearby shop. They sat on the floor, sharing the meal, the groundnuts crunching as they talked. But Iphioma's usual spark was dim, her smiles fleeting. Adebayo sensed it, setting down his plantain. What's wrong, Iphioma? She hesitated, her fingers twisting the edge of her scarf. They're talking about us, aren't they? Your people, my people. I hear it here, see it in their eyes. I don't belong in your world, Adebayo. Her words hit him like a punch. Head seen the stares, heard the gossip, but Head hoped she hadn't. He took her hand, her calloused fingers grounding him. You belong with me, he said, his voice fierce. This city, these people, they don't get to decide who we are. Ifeoma's eyes searched his, her voice soft but steady. It's not just them. It's me too. I'm proud, Adebayo. I won't be your shadow or your mistake. He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. You're not my shadow, you're my light. And I'll fight for this, for us if you will. Ifeoma's breath caught, her heart warring between fear and hope. Shed survived by guarding herself, but Adebayo's sincerity cracked her defenses. She nodded, a small gesture heavy with trust. They sat in silence, the boli cooling between them, the Afrobeats outside weaving a melody of resilience. The whispers of Lagos, its elite, its skeptics, loomed large, but under the foundation's flickering light, Adebayo and Ifeoma found strength in each other. The bridge, where their story began, was still their anchor, a reminder that love could defy even the loudest doubts. As Adebayo walked her to her rented room in Yaba, the night air thick with the scent of rain, he knew this path was his to choose, and he chose her. The Lagos evening pulsed with life, the streets of Yaba alive with the chatter of traders, the sizzle of roadside grills, and the thump of Afrobeats spilling from open-air bars. Ifeoma walked beside Adebayo, her steps light despite the weight of her new life. Her small rented room in Yaba, paid for with her earnings from Ogunlai Cares, was a far cry from the underpass, with its single bed and a window that let in the city's cacophony. She wore a simple but vibrant Ankara dress, its red and gold patterns catching the streetlights, a gift from Mama Ngozi to celebrate her new job. Adebayo, in a tailored kaftan, his usual suits traded for something softer, matched her stride, a woven basket of moin and cold malt bottles swinging from his hand. Their destination was a small buka tucked behind a mechanic's shop, its tin roof strung with fairy lights, where the aroma of pepper soup and fried fish promised a night of warmth. For months had passed since their first kiss under the third mainland bridge, and their love had bloomed in quiet, defiant moments. Ifeoma's work at the foundation had become her anchor, her days filled with teaching street children to read and write, their eager faces mirroring her own hunger for a better life. Shed crafted lesson plans from her old notebook, her mother's spirit guiding her as she taught kids to sound out words like hope and dream. Adebayo, once tethered to boardrooms, now spent evenings at the foundation, helping with logistics or simply watching Ifeoma shine. Their connection had grown beyond the bridge, spilling into Lagos streets, where they navigated the city's chaos as equals, their laughter a shield against the whispers that followed them. Tonight, the buka was crowded, its plastic tables packed with workers, students, and couples sharing plates of steaming rice and stew. Ifeoma and Adebayo claimed a corner table, the wobbly surface covered with a checkered cloth. As they unwrapped the moin, its soft, spicy warmth filling the air, Ifeoma teased Adebayo about his clumsy attempt to peel the steamed bean pudding. "You're a billionaire, but you can't handle moin?" she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. He laughed, a deep, unguarded sound that drew stares from nearby tables. "Blame my mother. She never let me near the kitchen," he replied, popping a piece into his mouth, only to spill sauce on his kaftan. Ifeoma's giggle was infectious, and for a moment, the world was just them, their joy louder than the bar's music. But Lagos never let them forget their differences. As they ate, a group of young professionals at a nearby table cast curious glances, their hushed tones carrying words like Ogunlai and that girl. Ifeoma's smile faltered, her fingers tightening around her malt bottle. She'd grown used to the stares. Shopkeepers who raised eyebrows when Adebayo paid for her groceries. Foundation staff who whispered when he lingered too long. She was no longer the bridge girl, but to many, she was still an outsider in Adebayo's glittering world. Sensing her unease, Adebayo reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "Let them look," he said, his voice low but firm. "They don't know you like I do." Their evenings had become a tapestry of such moments. Strolls through Yaba's bustling markets, where Ifeoma haggled for fresh tomatoes with the skill of a village trader. Visits to a jazz bar in Surulere, where they swayed to saxophone melodies, her head resting on his shoulder. Quiet nights in the foundation office, planning programs over cups of zobo. Adebayo marveled at Ifeoma's refusal to be dazzled by his wealth. She mocked his flashy watches but cherished the small gestures. Like the time Head bought her a stack of children's books for her classes. She, in turn, brought him into her world, teaching him to navigate street vendors and laugh at his own privilege. "You're learning, city boy," she'd say, her smile a mix of pride and affection. One night, under the flickering neon sign of the jazz bar, Adebayo took a deep breath, his heart racing. The air smelled of grilled suya and rain, the bar's speakers humming with Femi Kuti's soulful notes. He'd been carrying the words for weeks, waiting for the right moment. "Ifeoma," he said, turning to face her, his eyes locking onto hers. "I don't want to hide this anymore. Be mine officially in front of the world." Her breath caught, her eyes searching his for any trace of doubt. She saw none, only a man who'd chosen her over the city's expectations. "I'm already yours, Adebayo," she whispered, her voice trembling with certainty. "But I'm still me, no fancy airs, no pretending." He grinned, pulling her close, her warmth grounding him. "That's exactly why I love you." The bar erupted in cheers as they kissed, a few patrons clapping, mistaking them for a celebration. Ifeoma laughed against his lips, the sound muffled but free. Their love was no longer confined to the bridge's shadows. It was out in the open, bold and unapologetic. But the city's whispers grew louder, carried by society pages and gossip blogs. Adebayo's mother, Alhaja Rizakat, called him daily, her voice heavy with warnings about legacy and scandal. His business partners hinted at risks to his brand, their smiles tight at board meetings. Ifeoma felt the pressure too, but she stood taller, her work at the foundation her proof of worth. As they walked back to her room, the Lagos night wrapping them in its humid embrace, Adebayo squeezed her hand. "We're stronger than their talk," he said. Ifeoma nodded, her heart steady. "Then let's keep walking, you and me." The city roared around them, but their love, born under a bridge, was a flame no gossip could extinguish. The Lagos dusk painted the sky in hues of orange and violet, the third mainland bridge stretching like a ribbon across the lagoon, its silhouette a testament to the city's restless ambition. Beneath it, the underpass was quieter than usual, the usual clamor of hawkers and scavengers softened by the evening's calm. The air carried the briny scent of the lagoon, mingled with the faint sweetness of roasted corn from a distant vendor and the earthy dampness of concrete, still wet from an earlier drizzle. Adebayo Ogunlai stood under one of the bridge's massive pillars, his heart pounding like the D-gem drums at a Yoruba festival. He wore a simple white kaftan, its clean lines a deliberate contrast to his usual tailored suits, a choice meant to honor the woman who'd captured his soul. In his pocket, a small velvet box held a diamond ring, not ostentatious, but elegant, chosen with Ifeoma's understated grace in mind. 6 months had passed since their first kiss under this very bridge, a moment that had shifted Adebayo's world from boardrooms and galas to the raw, vibrant pulse of Ifeoma's life. Their love had grown through shared evenings at Yababukas, late-night planning sessions at Ogunlai Cares, and quiet walks through Lagos' chaotic streets, where Ifeoma's laughter was a melody he never tired of. But the city's whispers had grown louder. Society matrons at Ikoyi club dinners, business partners at board meetings, even his mother, Alhaja Rizakat, warning him about the bridge girl who could unravel his legacy. Adebayo didn't care. Ifeoma was his home, her strength and heart more valuable than any empire. Tonight, he would ask her to be his forever, and the bridge, where their story began, felt like the only place to do it. Head spent weeks planning, knowing Ifeoma would hate a flashy proposal. Shed mocked his Rolex once, saying, "Time doesn't need diamonds to tick." So Head worked with the foundation to transform the underpass, a project Ifeoma had inspired. Volunteers had swept away debris, painted the pillars with colorful murals of children reading and dancing, and strung solar-powered fairy lights that now twinkled like stars against the concrete. A small table held a spread of her favorites, suya, puff-puff, and chilled zobo in a clay pot, its hibiscus tang a nod to her village roots. Adebayo had even convinced Mama Ngozi, Ifeoma's underpass neighbor, to keep her away until sunset, claiming a foundation meeting. As he had just the lights, his driver, Musa, chuckled from nearby. "Oga, you sure say this bridge no-go propose for you? You're shaking like a leaf." Adebayo laughed, but his palms were sweaty, his nerves raw with the weight of the moment. Ifeoma arrived as the sky deepened to indigo, her steps hesitant as she took in the transformed underpass. She wore a green Ankara dress, its vibrant swirls accentuating her graceful frame, her cornrows adorned with a single bead that caught the fairy lights. Her eyes widened at the sight. The murals, the lights, the table set for two. "Adebayo, what's all this?" she asked, her voice a mix of suspicion and wonder. He grinned, guiding her to the table. "Just a thank you. For this place, for us." They sat, sharing the suya, its smoky spice filling the air as they talked. Ifeoma's laughter rang out when he tried to mimic her Igbo accent, but her eyes kept drifting to the murals, her fingers tracing the table's edge. "You did this for the kids?" she asked, her voice soft. "For them," he said, "and for you." As they finished the zobo, Adebayo's heart raced. The bridge was quiet now, save for the distant hum of traffic and the soft lapping of lagoon waves. He stood, taking her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "Ifeoma," he began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "This bridge is where I found you, where I found me. You've shown me what matters: heart, hope, a life bigger than money." He dropped to one knee, the concrete cool beneath him, and opened the velvet box, the diamond glinting in the fairy light. "You're my home, my everything. Marry me, Ifeoma. Let's build a world together." Ifeoma's breath caught, her eyes glistening as she stared at the ring, then at him. Her heart warred with itself, love for Adebayo clashing with the weight of their worlds. Shed fought to carve her place at the foundation, earning respect through her work, but marrying him meant stepping fully into his spotlight, where Lagos elite would judge her every move. Shed heard the gossip, sneers at galas, whispers in the office, even Mama Ngozi's gentle warnings about big men and their fleeting hearts. But Adebayo's eyes held no pretense, only a love as steady as the bridge above them. "You're sure?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "This city won't make it easy." He rose, pulling her close, his forehead against hers. "I don't want easy, Ifeoma. I want you." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she nodded, a soft yes escaping her lips. Adebayo slid the ring onto her finger, its weight unfamiliar but warm. They kissed, a deep, joyful embrace that drowned out the city's noise, the fairy lights casting their shadows on the murals. Passers-by, hawkers, kids, an old man with a walking stick, paused to stare, some clapping, others murmuring. Ifeoma laughed through her tears, pulling back to tease. "You planned all this, and you didn't even sweep the floor properly." Adebayo chuckled, his arms around her, the bridge their sanctuary once more. As they stood together, the zobo forgotten, the lagoon breeze carrying their promise, Lagos watched, a city of skeptics and dreamers, witnessing a love that defied its rules. The morning sun bathed Yaba in a golden glow, its rays filtering through the dusty windows of St. Dominic's Church, a modest brick building tucked between a bustling market and a row of mechanic shops. The air was thick with the scent of fresh bread from a nearby bakery, mingling with the tang of grilled suya from street vendors setting up for the day. Inside the church, the pews were adorned with simple white ribbons and sprigs of hibiscus, their red petals a nod to Ifeoma's village roots. The ceiling fans whirred softly, stirring the humid air, while a choir of local children, some from Ogunlai Cares, practiced a Yoruba hymn, their voices rising in a melody of hope and celebration. Today was the day Adebayo, Ogunlai, and Ifeoma would become one, a union born under the third mainland bridge now sanctified in the heart of Lagos. Ifeoma stood in a small room at the back of the church, her reflection shimmering in a cracked mirror. She wore a flowing white gown, its simplicity elegant, with delicate lace at the neckline and a sash of Ankara in vibrant green and gold, a gift from Mama Ngozi, her friend from the underpass. Her cornrows were woven with beads that caught the light, and a single hibiscus flower was tucked behind her ear, a tribute to her mother. At 23, Ifeoma had transformed from the wary bridge girl to a woman radiant with purpose, her work at the foundation giving her a quiet confidence. Yet, as she adjusted the gown, her fingers trembled. Marrying Adebayo meant stepping fully into his world, where Lagos elite would watch her every move. Shed heard the gossip, society blogs calling her a Cinderella story, some with admiration, others with scorn. But Adebayo's love, steady as the lagoon's tide, anchored her. "You're enough," Head told her last night, and she clung to those words now. Adebayo waited at the altar, his heart racing beneath his cream agbada, its intricate embroidery a nod to his Yoruba heritage. At 38, he was no stranger to high-stakes moments, closing multimillion naira deals, facing skeptical investors, but this felt different, raw, and sacred. Head chosen a small wedding, knowing Ifeoma would hate the extravagance of Ikoyi's banquet halls. The guest list was intimate: foundation staff, a few loyal friends, and the underpass community. Mama Ngozi, Emeka, Tund, who'd become Ifeoma's family. His mother, Alhaja Rizakat, sat in the front pew, her Ankara wrapper resplendent, her face a mix of pride and lingering doubt. Shed resisted this union, warning of scandal, but Ifeoma's grace at a recent family dinner had softened her. "She's strong," Rizakat had admitted grudgingly, "but she must carry our name well." The church doors opened, and Ifeoma stepped forward, her gown trailing lightly on the tiled floor. The choir's hymn swelled, and Adebayo's breath caught. She was a vision, her eyes locking onto his with a mix of love and defiance, as if daring the world to challenge them. The congregation, 50 souls, from street hawkers to foundation volunteers, turned to watch, their murmurs of admiration blending with the hum of Lagos outside. Emeka, the teenage footballer from the bridge, grinned from the pews, whispering to Tund, "She no be bridge girl again, oh." Ifeoma's smile was shy but steady as she reached Adebayo, her hand slipping into his, warm and sure. The ceremony was simple, led by a jovial pastor who'd known Adebayo since his Surulere days. They exchanged vows in English and Igbo, Ifeoma's voice clear as she promised to love through Lagos storms and sun. Adebayo's vows were heartfelt, his deep voice trembling as he called her my bridge, my home. When he slid a gold band onto her finger, beside the diamond engagement ring, the congregation erupted in cheers, the children's choir breaking into a spontaneous rendition of Sweet Mother. Rizakat dabbed her eyes, her bangles clinking, her approval sealed in that moment. Ifeoma's tears fell as they kissed, a soft, lingering embrace that drowned out the city's noise, the church walls echoing their joy. The reception was held in the church courtyard, transformed with colorful canopies and plastic tables laden with jollof rice, egusi stew, pounded yam, and platters of chin-chin. A juju band played, their guitars and talking drums filling the air with infectious rhythms. Ifeoma and Adebayo danced, her gown swirling as he spun her, their laughter mingling with the music. Mama Ngozi joined them, her wrapper tied high as she swayed, shouting, "This love na fire." Guests from the underpass mingled with foundation staff, their differences fading in the shared joy. Even Rizakat danced, her gelly bobbing as she pulled Ifeoma into a warm embrace, whispering, "You're my daughter now." Ifeoma's heart swelled, the weight of her past lifting. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the courtyard, Ifeoma and Adebayo slipped away to a quiet corner, sharing a plate of suya under the fairy lights. "This is more than I ever dreamed," Ifeoma whispered, her head resting on his shoulder, the spicy tang of suya on her lips. Adebayo kissed her forehead, his voice soft. "And it's just the beginning, Ife." The Lagos night buzzed around them, Okadas roaring, vendors calling, the city's pulse unrelenting. But in that courtyard, their love was a sanctuary, a promise sealed in the open, where the bridge's shadows met the light of their future. The Ikoyi mansion stood like a glass and marble fortress, its sleek lines and towering windows a stark contrast to the gritty pulse of Lagos outside. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling panes, casting golden patterns across the polished hardwood floors, while the distant hum of Victoria Island traffic mingled with the chirp of birds in the manicured garden. Ifeoma Ogunleye, now 3 weeks married, stood in the expansive living room, her bare feet cool against the tiles, her vibrant Ankara wrapper a splash of color against the mansion's sterile white walls. She held a bolt of turquoise Ankara fabric, its bold patterns swirling like the lagoon at dusk, her eyes scanning the space with a mix of determination and unease. This was Adebayo's home, his empire's crown jewel, but it felt like a museum, cold and untouchable. Ifeoma was determined to make it theirs, a sanctuary where their love could breathe. Adebayo leaned against the doorway, a mug of Milo in hand, his casual kaftan a far cry from the suits he once wore like armor. At 38, he was still the billionaire CEO of Ogunleye Enterprises, but marriage to Ifeoma had softened his edges, grounding him in ways his boardroom victories never could. He watched her now, her brow furrowed as she measured the fabric against a sofa, her movements precise yet warm, like the teacher Shed become at Ogunleye Cares. "You're turning my house into a market stall," he teased, his deep voice laced with affection. Ifeoma shot him a playful glare, her hands on her hips. "Your house? This is our home now, Adebayo, and it needs life, not just money." He laughed, crossing the room to help her drape the fabric, their fingers brushing as they worked, a quiet spark in the morning light. Ifeoma's touch was everywhere in the mansion now. Shed hung Ankara curtains in the dining room, their reds and yellows catching the sun like stained glass. Potted palms and hibiscus plants lined the hallways, their earthy scent softening the air-conditioned chill. A wooden shelf held carvings from her village, a small elephant, a mask her father had made, beside Adebayo's tech awards, a blend of their pasts. The kitchen, once a showpiece for chefs who came and went, now smelled of egusi stew and fried plantain, Ifeoma insisting on cooking despite the staff's protests. "I'm not here to be served," Shed told Adebayo firmly. "This is home, not a hotel." Head grinned, stealing a piece of plantain, only to earn a playful swat with her wooden spoon. Their days were a rhythm of love and purpose. Ifeoma, now program director at Ogunleye Cares, spent her mornings in Yaba, expanding literacy classes and launching a new art program for street children. Her office was a riot of color, children's drawings pinned to the walls, a chalkboard scrawled with Igbo proverbs, the air alive with laughter and the clatter of crayons. Adebayo, inspired by her passion, redirected millions from his tech profits into the foundation, funding scholarships and a mobile library that roamed Lagos slums. Head joined her in the evenings, his sleeves rolled up, helping kids with their homework or debating Ifeoma over funding priorities. "You're too soft with the budget," Shed teased, her eyes twinkling. "And you're too stubborn," Head retort, pulling her into a hug that silenced their mock arguments. But the mansion wasn't their only battleground. Lagos elites still whispered, their voices sharp in society blogs and Ikoyi club brunches. "She's changed him," one heiress sniffed, sipping champagne. "He's neglecting business for that girl." Adebayo's mother, Alhaja Rizakat, now warmer to Ifeoma, still called weekly, urging caution. "You're a power couple now," Shed say, her bangles clinking through the phone. "Don't let love make you forget your name." Ifeoma felt the pressure too, her new role as Mrs. Ogunleye drawing curious stares at foundation events. She met them with her head high, her Ankara dresses a quiet rebellion against their sequined gowns. But late at night, Shed confided in Adebayo, her voice soft. "I don't want to be your trophy, Adebayo. I want to be your partner." Head pull her close, the mansion's silence wrapping them, and kiss her forehead. "You're my equal, Ife. Always." Their evenings were their refuge, sharing plates of jollof rice on the balcony, the city's skyline twinkling below, or dancing to Femi Kuti's saxophone in the living room. Ifeoma teaching him Igbo steps that left him stumbling and laughing. They dreamed aloud, planning a family, a legacy not of wealth but of impact. "I want our children to know where I came from," Ifeoma said one night, her head on his chest, the lagoon breeze drifting through the open window. "The bridge, the village, all of it." Adebayo nodded, his fingers tracing her palm. And I want them to know you, your heart, your fire. One evening, as they sat in the garden, the air heavy with the scent of jasmine and roasted corn from a passing vendor, Ifeoma hung a small mural, a painting of the third mainland bridge, its pillars vibrant with the foundation's colors. This is where we began, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Adebayo pulled her into his arms, the stars above mirroring the lights of their new home. And this is where we're going, he whispered, gesturing to the life they were building. Lagos whispers could wait. Their home, filled with love and purpose, was a fortress no gossip could breach. The Ikoyi mansion glowed under the Lagos morning sun, its glass walls reflecting the lagoon's shimmer like a prism of dreams. Inside, the air was fragrant with the earthy aroma of brewing coffee and the lingering spice of last night's egusi stew, a testament to Ifeoma's insistence on cooking despite the household staff's protests. The living room, once a sterile showcase of Adebayo's wealth, now hummed with life. Ankara curtains swaying in the breeze, potted hibiscus blooming by the windows, and a wooden shelf displaying Ifeoma's village carvings beside Adebayo's tech awards. Ifeoma Ogunlai, now 2 years into her marriage, stood by the balcony, her Ankara wrapper tied loosely, her hand resting on her stomach as she gazed at the city's skyline. At 25, she was no longer the bridge girl but a force. Program director at Ogunlai Cares, her days filled with teaching street children and her nights wrapped in Adebayo's arms, dreaming of a future they'd build together. Adebayo, 40, emerged from the kitchen, his kaftan slightly rumpled, a tray of akara and pap balanced in his hands. His billionaire polish had softened, his laughter freer since Ifeoma had made this mansion a home. He set the tray on the balcony table, his eyes catching the way Ifeoma's face glowed, a quiet intensity he hadn't seen before. "You're up early, Ife," he said, kissing her cheek, the warmth of her skin grounding him. She smiled, but her eyes held a secret, her fingers tightening on the railing. "I have something to tell you," she said, her voice soft but steady, her Igbo accent lilting like a melody. Adebayo's brow furrowed, sensing the weight of her words. "What is it? You okay?" Ifeoma turned to face him, her eyes glistening with a mix of joy and nerves. "I'm pregnant, Adebayo." The words hung in the air, as bright as the morning sun. Adebayo's mug slipped from his hand, clattering onto the tray, his face breaking into a grin that lit up the balcony. "Pregnant?" he repeated, his voice rising with disbelief and delight. He pulled her into his arms, spinning her gently, his laughter echoing like a child's. "I'm going to be a father," he shouted, loud enough to startle a flock of birds from the garden. Ifeoma laughed, her hands gripping his shoulders, but her joy was tempered by a flicker of fear. "It's big, Adebayo. Scary big," she admitted, her voice soft against his chest. They sat, the akara forgotten as Ifeoma shared the details. Shed felt tired for weeks, her body slower than usual, and a visit to the clinic the previous day had confirmed it. But the doctor's words still echoed in her mind. Triplets, 3 lives growing inside her, a miracle and a challenge. Adebayo's eyes widened, his grin faltering into awe. "Triplets? 3 at once?" He laughed again, a nervous, joyful sound, pulling her close. "We're going to need a bigger house." Ifeoma swatted his arm, her smile returning. "This mansion is big enough, city boy, but we'll need more than money for this." The news spread like wildfire through their world. At Ogunlai Cares in Yaba, Ifeoma's colleagues cheered when she shared it, the children crafting colorful cards with crayon-drawn babies. Mama Ngozi, now a volunteer at the foundation, hugged her tightly, her wrapper smelling of roasted corn. 3 blessings at once. "Godon duam," she declared, her laughter filling the office. But Lagos elite were less kind. Society blogs buzzed with headlines, "Ogunlai's bridge bride expecting triplets," "A new dynasty or a scandal," and whispers at Ikoyi club dinners grew sharper. 3 children with her? One heiress scoffed, her gelly glinting under chandeliers. "He's throwing away his legacy." Adebayo's mother, Alhaja Rizakat, called from her Surulur home, her voice warm but cautious. Triplets are a big blessing, but a bigger responsibility. You must protect her, Adebayo. Ifeoma felt the weight of those eyes, but her work at the foundation kept her grounded. She spent her days expanding literacy programs, her classroom a haven of laughter and learning, where street kids called her Auntie Ife and drew pictures of her growing belly. She read parenting books at night, her notebook now filled with baby names alongside lesson plans. Chikwudi, Tund, Adiz, names that carried her village's spirit and Adebayo's Yoruba roots. Adebayo, meanwhile, was a whirlwind of excitement, sketching plans for a nursery in the mansion, its walls to be painted in soft yellows with murals of the Third Mainland Bridge. He'd leave board meetings early to join Ifeoma at the clinic, his hands steady in hers during ultrasounds, the 3 tiny heartbeats a symphony that silenced his doubts. One evening, as they sat in the mansion's garden, the air heavy with jasmine and the distant hum of Lagos, Ifeoma leaned against Adebayo, her head on his shoulder. The city skyline twinkled, but their world was here, palm trees swaying, a plate of chin-chin between them, the promise of their triplets binding them closer. "I'm scared, Adebayo," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. 3 at once, this city watching us. What if I'm not enough? He kissed her forehead, his voice firm. "You're more than enough, Ife. You turned a bridge into a home. You'll make us a family." She smiled, her fears easing, and as the stars emerged, they dreamed of their children, their love a fortress against Lagos' relentless gaze. The Lagos morning draped the Ikoyi mansion in a golden haze, the sun's rays glinting off the lagoon visible through the mansion's towering glass walls. Inside, the air was alive with the rich aroma of brewing coffee, the smoky spice of leftover egusi stew simmering on the stove, and the faint sweetness of hibiscus flowers blooming in pots along the windowsills. The living room, once a sterile monument to Adebayo's billionaire status, now pulsed with warmth. Turquoise Ankara curtains danced in the breeze. A woven mat from Ifeoma's village lay beneath a glass coffee table, and a shelf held her father's carved wooden elephant beside Adebayo's tech awards. Ifeoma Ogunlai, 2 years into her marriage at 25, stood on the balcony, her Ankara wrapper loosely tied, its vibrant swirls of green and gold catching the light. Her hand rested gently on her stomach, her eyes tracing the distant silhouette of the Third Mainland Bridge, where her life with Adebayo had begun. A quiet smile played on her lips, but her heart raced with a secret too big to hold alone. Adebayo, now 40, emerged from the kitchen, his casual kaftan slightly wrinkled, a tray of steaming akara and a bowl of pap balanced in his hands. The billionaire CEO of Ogunlai Enterprises had softened since marrying Ifeoma, his once guarded demeanor replaced by a lightness that showed in his easy grin and the way he hummed Fela Kuti's Water No Get Enemy under his breath. He set the tray on the balcony table, the golden fritters fragrant with onions and pepper, and leaned in to kiss Ifeoma's cheek, her warmth grounding him like the earth after a Lagos rain. "You're quiet today, Ife," he said, his deep voice teasing but tender. "Planning another program to save Lagos kids?" Ifeoma's smile widened, but her eyes held a nervous spark, her fingers tightening on the railing. "Not quite," she said, her Igbo accent lilting softly. "I have something bigger to tell you, Adebayo." He raised an eyebrow, setting down the tray, his curiosity piqued. Ifeoma took a deep breath, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air, as bright and fragile as the morning light. Adebayo's eyes widened, his mug of Milo slipping from his hand and clattering onto the tray, splashing pap across the table. His face broke into a grin that could rival the sun, his laughter bursting out like a child's on Christmas morning. "Pregnant? Ifeoma!" He swept her into his arms, spinning her gently, mindful of her still flat stomach, his joy echoing off the mansion's walls. "I'm going to be a father," he shouted, loud enough to startle a pair of egrets from the garden's palm trees. Ifeoma laughed, her hands gripping his shoulders, but her eyes glistened with a mix of joy and apprehension. "Wait, there's more," she said, her voice dropping. "It's triplets." The word hit Adebayo like a thunderclap. Triplets? 3? His grin faltered into awe, his hands framing her face as if to anchor himself. He sank onto the balcony chair, pulling her with him, his laughter a nervous, joyful cascade. 3 at once, Ife? You're carrying a whole village. Ifeoma swatted his arm, her smile breaking through her nerves. You're the one who wanted a big family. City boy, she teased, but her voice softened. It's scary, Adebayo. 3 lives, this city watching us. What if I'm not ready? He took her hands, his thumbs tracing her knuckles, his eyes steady. You turned a bridge into a beginning, Ife. You're ready for anything, and I'm here every step. The news rippled through their world like a stone tossed into the lagoon. At Ogunlai Cares in Yaba, Ifeoma shared the news during a staff meeting, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. The classroom, alive with children's drawings and the chalky scent of learning, erupted in cheers. The kids, many of whom saw Ifeoma as Auntie Ife, their beacon of hope, crowded around her, offering crayon-scribbled cards of babies in oversized Ankara outfits. Mama Ngozi, now a foundation volunteer, enveloped Ifeoma in a hug, her wrapper smelling of roasted corn and charcoal. 3 blessings. Chai. God don open heaven for you, she exclaimed, her laughter drawing smiles from the staff. Emeka, the teenage footballer from the bridge, grinned shyly, muttering, Auntie, you go need a big bus for those babies. But Lagos elite were less kind. Society blogs lit up with headlines. Ogunlai's bridge bride to birth triplets. A fairy tale or a fiasco? And whispers at Ikoyi club brunches grew venomous. 3 children with a hawker? A real estate tycoon scoffed, swirling his whiskey. He's diluting his legacy. Another heiress, her gelly towering like a crown, added. She's clever, trapping him like that. Adebayo's mother, Alhaja Rizakat, called from her Surulere home, her voice warm but laced with concern. Triplets are a gift, my son, but they'll draw eyes. Protect her and our name. Adebayo brushed off the gossip, but Ifeoma felt it sting. Her pride bruised by the assumption shed, trapped him. She buried her fears in her work, her classroom a refuge where her worth was measured in children's smiles, not society's sneers. Ifeoma threw herself into preparation, her nights spent poring over parenting books borrowed from the Yaba library, her old notebook now a mix of lesson plans and baby names. Chikwudi for strength, Tun for return, Adiz for royalty, names that wove her Igbo heritage with Adebayo's Yoruba roots. She'd sit cross-legged on the mansion's living room floor, her wrapper pooling around her, scribbling notes while Adebayo sketched nursery designs. His laptop open to images of cribs and soft yellow paint. He'd leave board meetings early to join her at clinic visits, his hands steady in hers as they watched 3 tiny heartbeats flicker on the ultrasound screen. A symphony that hushed his usually restless mind. Look at them, Ife he'd whisper, his voice thick with awe. Our little warriors. One evening, they sat in the mansion's garden, the air heavy with jasmine and the distant sizzle of a vendor's suya grill. A plate of chin-chin sat between them, the crunchy sweetness a comfort as they talked. Ifeoma leaned against Adebayo, her head on his shoulder, the city's skyline twinkling like a promise. I'm scared, Adebayo, she admitted, her voice a whisper against the night's hum. 3 at once, all these eyes on us. What if I fail them? He tilted her chin, his eyes fierce with love. You've never failed at anything, Ifeoma. You built a home from nothing, a life from ashes. These babies? They're lucky to have you. She smiled, her fears easing, and as the stars emerged above, they dreamed of their triplets, their love a fortress against Lagos judgment, their future as bright as the bridge's fairy lights. The Lagos sun blazed through the windows of Lagos University Teaching Hospital, its golden light filtering into the delivery ward where the air was sharp with antiseptic and the faint hum of medical equipment. Outside, the city pulsed with its usual chaos. Okadas weaving through traffic, hawkers shouting gala, pure water, and the distant thump of Afrobeats from a nearby shop. Inside, Ifeoma Ogunlai lay on a hospital bed, her Ankara headscarf slightly askew, her face glistening with sweat as she gripped Adebayo's hand. At 25, she was a vision of strength, her eyes fierce with determination despite the pain of labor. 2 years into their marriage, Shed transformed from the bridge girl into a leader at Ogunlai Cares, her heart now stretched to carry 3 new lives. Triplets, a miracle that had kept her and Adebayo dreaming and planning through sleepless nights. The delivery room was a whirlwind of activity, nurses in crisp uniforms moving with quiet efficiency, their Yoruba and English instructions blending into a steady rhythm. Adebayo, 40, stood beside her, his kaftan rumpled from hours of pacing, his usually composed demeanor unraveling into raw emotion. The billionaire CEO of Ogunlai Enterprises, once defined by boardroom victories, was now a man undone by love and anticipation. His hand trembled in Ifeoma's, his eyes locked on her, marveling at her resilience. The past 9 months had been a journey, ultrasounds revealing 3 tiny heartbeats, nursery plans in their Ikoyi mansion, and Ifeoma's fierce determination to balance her foundation work with motherhood. The news of triplets had sparked joy and fear, amplified by Lagos' relentless gossip. Society blogs had spun tales, Ogunlai's triplets, a dynasty or a distraction, while Ikoyi Club regulars whispered about the hawker's children. But Adebayo cared only for Ifeoma and the family they were building, their love a fortress against the city's judgment. The labor had been grueling, stretching into the early hours of this sunny morning. Ifeoma's village grit carried her through, her mother's prayers echoing in her mind as she pushed through each contraction. "You're doing it, Ife," Adebayo whispered, his voice thick with awe, brushing damp strands from her forehead. She managed a weak smile, her Igbo accent sharp even in pain. "These babies better be worth it, city boy." The nurses chuckled, one murmuring, "This one's strong, oh," as they monitored the machines. Then, with a final, fierce push, the first cry pierced the room, a sharp, defiant wail that brought tears to Adebayo's eyes. Chikwudi, their first son, arrived, his tiny fists clenched, his dark eyes blinking against the light. Minutes later, Tund followed, his cry softer but insistent, and finally Adiz, their daughter, her wail a melody that filled the room like a hymn. Adebayo's tears fell freely as the nurses placed the triplets in his arms, their swaddled forms impossibly small against his broad chest. Chikwidi's fingers curled around his thumb, Tund's face scrunched in protest, and Adiz's eyes met his, calm and curious. "Look at them, Ife," he said, his voice breaking as he turned to Ifeoma, who lay exhausted but radiant, her smile brighter than the Lagos sun. "You did this. You're incredible." She reached out, her hand trembling as she touched each baby's cheek, her heart swelling with a love so fierce it drowned out the pain. "We did this," she corrected, her voice soft but firm, her eyes locking with his in a shared promise. The hospital ward soon buzzed with visitors, their footsteps echoing on the tiled floor, the air filled with the scent of flowers and baby powder. Mama Ngozi arrived first, her wrapper vibrant with red and yellow, carrying a basket of boiled yam and pepper sauce. 3 at once. "Chai, Ifeoma, you don't show Lagos who you be," she exclaimed, her laughter drawing smiles from the nurses. Emeka, the teenage footballer from the bridge, shyly offered a hand-drawn card from the foundation kids, its crayon babies adorned with oversized beads. The Ogunlai Cares staff followed, bringing Ankara-wrapped gifts, tiny clothes, rattles, a carved wooden mobile from Ifeoma's village. Even Alhaja Rizakat, Adebayo's mother, swept in, her geli towering, her bangles clinking as she held each grandchild, her eyes glistening. "These ones will shake Lagos," she declared, her earlier doubts replaced by pride. "Ifeoma, you've done well." The city's elite were less warm, their congratulations laced with skepticism. A society blog post went viral, its headline snide, "Triplets for the Bridge Bride. Will they inherit Ogunlai's empire or her past?" Adebayo ignored the chatter, his focus on his family, but Ifeoma felt the sting, her pride bruised by the implication her children were less than. She pushed it aside, her strength renewed by the weight of Adiz in her arms, the warmth of Chikuti against her chest, the quiet strength of Tun's gaze. The hospital room, with its beeping monitors and antiseptic scent, became a sanctuary, the triplets' cries a song of defiance against Lagos judgment. As night fell, the ward quieted, the city's hum softening beyond the windows. Adebayo sat beside Ifeoma's bed, holding Tund while she cradled Chikuti and Adiz. The triplets' tiny breaths synced with the rhythm of their parents' love, a bond forged under a bridge now cemented in this moment. Ifeoma looked at Adebayo, her eyes tired but fierce. "We're a family now," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. He leaned in, kissing her forehead, his own tears falling. "Always, Ife, always." Outside, Lagos roared on, its skyline twinkling. But in that room, their world was complete. 3 new lives, a love unbroken, and a future as vast as the lagoon itself. The Ikoyi mansion hummed with a new kind of chaos, its once pristine halls now alive with the high-pitched giggles and wails of 3 tiny souls. The morning sun poured through the glass walls, casting playful shadows across the hardwood floors, where a colorful mat lay strewn with rattles, stuffed animals, and a half-spilled bottle of baby formula. The air carried the sweet scent of talcum powder, mingling with the earthy aroma of potted hibiscus and the faint spice of Ifeoma's morning pot of vegetable stew simmering in the kitchen. At 26, Ifeoma Ogunlai stood at the center of this whirlwind, her Ankara wrapper tied high, her cornrows tucked under a vibrant headscarf as she rocked Adiz in her arms. The triplets' dark eyes sparkled with curiosity, her tiny fingers clutching a bead from Ifeoma's hair. Chikuti and Tund, her brothers, babbled in their cribs, their voices a chorus that filled the mansion with life. Adebayo, now 41, knelt on the floor, his kaftan dusted with baby powder, attempting to change Tund's diaper while dodging the boy's flailing legs. The billionaire CEO of Ogunlai Enterprises, once tethered to boardrooms and late-night deals, was now a master of burping techniques and lullabies, his deep voice crooning a Yoruba song his mother had taught him, "Omo Obati da, Ili done." When a child arrives, the world is sweet. He glanced at Ifeoma, her tired smile lighting up the room, and grinned. "This one's a fighter, Ife," he said, securing Tund's diaper with a triumphant nod. "Just like his mother." Ifeoma laughed, her voice rich despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "And Chikuti's curious like you, always grabbing everything. Adiz, though, she's the boss." The triplets, now 6 months old, had woven a new rhythm into their lives. Chikuti, the firstborn, was the explorer, his wide eyes scanning the room, his tiny hands reaching for anything bright. Ankara curtains, Adebayo's phone, even the wooden elephant carving from Ifeoma's village. Tund was the mischief maker, his infectious giggle erupting whenever he knocked over a toy or splashed his bathwater. Adiz, the only girl, was quieter, her calm gaze holding a wisdom that made Ifeoma whisper, "This one knows things." The mansion, once a sterile showcase, was now a playground, its nursery painted in soft yellows with murals of the Third Mainland Bridge, a nod to where their parents' love began. The walls echoed with cries and laughter, a symphony that drowned out Lagos' relentless hum. Ifeoma balanced motherhood with her role as program director at Ogunlai Cares, her days a blur of teaching street children and soothing babies at night. Shed returned from the Yaba office, her Ankara dress dusted with chalk, and dive into feeding schedules, her notebook now a mix of lesson plans and diaper counts. The foundation had grown under her leadership, its literacy programs reaching slums across Lagos, with a new art workshop where kids painted their dreams on canvas. She'd bring the triplets to the office on quieter days, their stroller parked by her desk as she taught, the children's laughter blending with the clatter of crayons. "Auntie Ife, your baby Sabi make noise oh Emeka," the teenage footballer from the bridge, teased, helping her carry books. Ifeoma grinned, ruffling his hair. "They're learning early, just like you." Adebayo, too, had transformed. Board meetings now competed with bath times, and Head often leave his Victoria Island office early, his laptop swapped for a diaper bag. Head mastered the art of soothing Chikuti's tantrums with a gentle sway, his deep voice narrating stories of Lagos markets to lull Tund to sleep. At night, he and Ifeoma would collapse on the living room mat, the triplets finally asleep, sharing a plate of chin-chin and zobo, the hibiscus drink's tang a reminder of their simpler days. "We're doing this," Ife, head say, his hands squeezing hers, the city's skyline twinkling beyond the windows. "Three at once and we're still standing." She'd lean against him, her laughter soft. "Barely standing, city boy." Their community rallied around them, a lifeline in the chaos. Mama Ngozi, now a fixture at the foundation, arrived weekly with baskets of boiled yam and pepper sauce, her laughter filling the mansion as she played with Adiz. "This one go be president," she'd declare, tickling the baby's chin. Alhaja Rizakat, Adebayo's mother, swept in from Surulere, her geli towering as she brought Ankara swaddles and Yoruba blessings. Her initial skepticism about Ifeoma, now a distant memory. "These children are our legacy," she'd say, cradling Chukwudi, her bangles clinking. The foundation staff organized a naming ceremony, a vibrant affair in the mansion's garden, with juju music, pounded yam, and children dancing under fairy lights. Emeka led a toast, his voice cracking with pride. "To Auntie Ife and Oga Adebayo, who showed us love can build anything." But Lagos elite still whispered, their voices sharp in society blogs and Ikoyi club lounges. "Triplets from a hawker?" One tycoon scoffed, sipping cognac. Ogunlai's lost his edge. A gossip column ran a piece titled "The Bridge Babies." Will they rise or fall? Ifeoma felt the sting, her pride bruised by the assumption her children were less worthy. She'd hold Adiz tighter, whispering, "You're royalty, my girl," her voice fierce with defiance. Adebayo ignored the chatter, his focus on his family, but he'd catch Ifeoma's quiet moments of doubt. One night, as they sat in the nursery, the triplets asleep in their cribs, the air heavy with jasmine from the garden, he pulled her close. "They don't know us, Ife. They don't know our babies. We're writing our own story." Ifeoma nodded, her eyes tracing the bridge mural on the nursery wall. "From under the bridge to here," she whispered, her voice thick. "We're enough for them, aren't we?" Adebayo kissed her, his lips warm against hers. "More than enough." Outside, Lagos roared. Okadas, vendors, the city's unrelenting pulse. But in their home, the triplets' soft breaths set the rhythm, a melody of love that no gossip could silence. The Lagos morning was ablaze with color, the sun casting a golden sheen over the sprawling city, its skyline a jagged dance of glass towers and shantytowns. In the Ikoyi mansion, the air hummed with the scent of freshly brewed oji, its fermented warmth mingling with the sweet fragrance of hibiscus blooming in the garden and the faint tang of baby formula. The living room, once a sterile monument to Adebayo's wealth, was now a vibrant tapestry of their family's life. Ankara curtains in bold reds and yellows swayed in the breeze. A woven mat from Ifeoma's village lay strewn with wooden toys, and a mural of the third mainland bridge adorned one wall, its painted pillars a reminder of where their love began. Ifeoma Ogunlai, now 27, stood at the center of this chaos, her Ankara wrapper tied high, her cornrows gleaming with beads as she balanced Adiz on her hip while coaxing Chukwudi to eat his porridge. Tund, ever the mischief maker, giggled from his high chair, smearing oji on his face, his dark eyes sparkling with delight. Adebayo, 42, knelt beside Chukwudi, his kaftan dusted with crumbs, his deep voice singing a Yoruba lullaby, "Omo mi, June, Kio Dagba," to encourage the toddler's appetite. The billionaire CEO of Ogunlai Enterprises had traded late-night boardroom calls for early mornings with his triplets, his once polished demeanor softened by fatherhood's demands. He glanced at Ifeoma, her tired but radiant smile lighting up the room, and grinned. "These three are running us ragged, Ife," he said, dodging Tund's flailing spoon. "But I wouldn't trade it." Ifeoma laughed, her voice rich despite the sleepless nights. "You say that now, city boy, but wait till Adiz starts walking. She'll be bossing us all." Adiz, perched on her mother's hip, cooed as if in agreement, her calm gaze holding a quiet authority. The triplets, now 2 years old, had woven a joyful chaos into their lives. Chakudi, the eldest, was a whirlwind of curiosity, toddling through the mansion to explore every corner, his tiny hands grasping at books or Ifeoma's village carvings. Tund was the jester, his infectious laughter erupting when he toppled toy stacks or chased the family cat, his mischief matched only by his charm. Adiz, the youngest, was their anchor, her thoughtful eyes and gentle babbling calming her brother's storms. The nursery, painted in soft yellows with bridge murals, was their kingdom, its shelves lined with picture books and rattles, the air filled with their chatter and the distant hum of Lagos traffic. Ifeoma's work at Ogunlai Cares had flourished, her vision transforming the foundation into a beacon for Lagos' marginalized youth. Now a director, Shed opened 3 shelters across the city, in Yaba, Ajagunal, and Makoko, each offering literacy classes, meals, and safe beds for street children. The Yaba office buzzed with activity, its walls plastered with children's artwork, the air thick with chalk dust and the laughter of kids learning to read. Ifeoma led with her mother's patience, teaching teens like Emeka, the footballer from the bridge, to write essays, while mentoring younger ones to dream beyond the slums. Shed bring the triplets to the shelters on weekends, their stroller weaving through classrooms, their giggles drawing smiles from even the most guarded kids. "Auntie Ife, your baby's sabi dance," oh, one girl teased, mimicking Tun's wobbly steps. Ifeoma grinned, her heart full, knowing her children were growing up in a world she was helping to rebuild. Adebayo, inspired by Ifeoma's fire, had become the foundation's biggest champion. He redirected millions from his tech empire to fund scholarships, mobile libraries, and art programs, his boardroom skills now serving Lagos forgotten. Head mentor young entrepreneurs at the shelters, sharing stories of his first app while helping them draft business plans. "You're turning into a teacher, too," Ifeoma teased one evening, as they sorted donations in the Yaba office, the air heavy with the scent of old books and roasted corn from a nearby vendor. Adebayo chuckled, pulling her close. "You're the one teaching me, Ife, how to live, not just build." Their partnership was a dance, her passion fueling his purpose, their love a bridge between their worlds. The triplets were a sensation at foundation events, their tiny Ankara outfits charming donors under canopies strung with fairy lights. At a recent fundraiser in Lekki, Chakudi toddled onto the stage, grabbing a microphone to babble, while Tund clapped gleefully, and Adiz watched with serene curiosity, stealing hearts. Donors opened their wallets, inspired by the Ogunlai story, a love born under a bridge, now raising 3 bright stars. But Lagos elites still whispered, their voices sharp in society blogs and Victoria Island lounges. "Those bridge babies," one heiress sneered, her gelly glinting under chandeliers. "Will they inherit Ogunlai's empire or her poverty?" A gossip column ran a piece titled "Triplets of the Underpass," Lagos' newest spectacle, twisting their story into a soap opera. Ifeoma felt the sting, her pride bruised, but Shed held Adiz close, whispering, "You're our queen," her voice fierce with love. Their community, though, was a shield. Mama Ngozi, now a shelter coordinator, arrived weekly with baskets of pounded yam and egusi, playing with the triplets while sharing stories of the bridge. "You don't give us hope, Ifeoma," Shed say, her laughter warm. Alhaja Rizakat, Adebayo's mother, visited often, her gelly towering as she sang Yoruba blessings over the children, her initial doubts replaced by fierce pride. "These ones will change the world," Shed declare, cradling Tund. Emeka, now a foundation intern, taught Chakudi to kick a tiny football, his grin wide. "Small Oga, you go play for Super Eagles." The foundation staff threw a second birthday party for the triplets in the mansion's garden. Juju music filling the air, tables laden with jollof rice and chin-chin, the children dancing under starlight. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Ifeoma and Adebayo sat in the garden, the air heavy with jasmine and the sizzle of a vendor's suya grill. The triplets played nearby, Chakudi stacking blocks, Tund chasing a butterfly, Adiz watching with a quiet smile. Ifeoma leaned against Adebayo, her head on his shoulder, a plate of puff-puff between them. "We're building something bigger than us," she said, her voice soft, her eyes on the bridge mural inside. A legacy of love. Adebayo kissed her, his lips warm against her forehead. You started it, Ife, under that bridge. Lagos roared beyond. Its traffic, its gossip, its unrelenting pulse. But their family, their shelters, their love, was a legacy no city could tear down. The Lagos evening was a tapestry of color and sound. The third mainland bridge stretching across the lagoon like a lifeline connecting the city's heart to its soul. Beneath it, the underpass, once a gritty refuge of damp concrete and forgotten dreams, had transformed into a vibrant community hub, its pillars painted with murals of children reading, dancing, and dreaming under starry skies. Solar-powered fairy lights twinkled like fireflies, casting a warm glow over a small library corner where books lined wooden shelves, their pages worn from eager hands. The air carried the briny scent of the lagoon, mingled with the smoky aroma of suya grilling nearby and the sweet tang of zobo served in clay pots. Ifeoma Ogunlai, now 28, stood at the center of this sanctuary, her Ankara dress a swirl of turquoise and gold, her cornrows adorned with beads that caught the light. Beside her, Adebayo, 43, pushed a triple stroller, his kaftan slightly rumpled, his grin as bright as the fairy lights. Their triplets, Chikwudi, Tund, and Adiz, now 3 years old, babbled and giggled, their tiny Ankara outfits vibrant against the evening's glow. Today marked their 5th wedding anniversary, a milestone that felt both fleeting and eternal. Ifeoma's hand rested on Adebayo's arm, her eyes tracing the murals, a testament to the shelters and programs shed built through Ogunlai Cares. The underpass, where their love had sparked under a rainy sky, was now a beacon for Lagos marginalized youth, a place where street children found books, meals, and hope. Adebayo's wealth had funded its transformation, but Ifeoma's vision had given it soul. She'd often return here alone, her footsteps echoing on the concrete, to remember the girl who'd survived under this bridge, her dreams tucked in a battered notebook. Now those dreams were real. Shelters in Yaba, a Jagunal, and Makoko, classrooms filled with laughter, and a family that filled her heart. Adebayo watched her now, his gaze soft with love and pride. The billionaire CEO of Ogunlai Enterprises had once lived for deals and power, but Ifeoma had reshaped him, her fire igniting his purpose. Had become a mentor to young entrepreneurs at the shelters, his tech empire now a tool for change, funding mobile libraries and scholarships across Lagos. The triplets were his joy, their chaos filling the Ikoyi mansion with life. Chikwudi, the curious explorer, toddled toward the library shelves, grabbing a picture book with glee. Tund, the mischievous jester, chased a stray balloon, his laughter echoing off the pillars. Adiz, the quiet leader, clung to Ifeoma's hand, her thoughtful eyes scanning the crowd, her tiny voice humming a Yoruba lullaby Adebayo had taught her. The underpass was alive with their community, gathered to celebrate the couple's anniversary. Mama Ngozi, now a lead coordinator at the Yaba shelter, bustled about, her wrapper vibrant as she handed out plates of jollof rice and puff-puff, her laughter booming. 5 years, Ifeoma. You and Oga Don show Lagos love na power, she declared, hugging Ifeoma tightly, her scent of roasted corn a comforting constant. Emeka, the teenage footballer from the bridge, now a university student on a foundation scholarship, kicked a ball with Chikwudi, his grin wide. Small Oga, you go play for Nigeria one day, he teased. Alhaja Rizakat, Adebayo's mother, arrived in a regal Ankara gown, her geli towering, her bangles clinking as she scooped up Adiz. These children are our pride, she said, her eyes glistening, her early doubts about Ifeoma long buried in love. The celebration was simple but heartfelt, a juju band strumming guitars and talking drums under the fairy lights, their rhythms blending with the lagoon's soft lapping. Children from the shelters danced, their bare feet kicking up dust, while foundation staff shared stories of lives changed. A girl now studying medicine, a boy running a small tech startup, all touched by Ifeoma's work. The couple joined the dance, Adebayo spinning Ifeoma as Tund clapped gleefully, the crowd cheering. Lagos elite still whispered, their gossip sharp in society blogs. The Bridge family's empire? Charity or spectacle? But the words felt distant here, drowned out by the community's warmth. Ifeoma had faced the sneers, her pride stung by headlines that called her children bridge babies. But Shed held Adiz close, whispering, "You're our legacy," her voice fierce with love. As the night deepened, Adebayo and Ifeoma slipped away from the crowd, pushing the triplets' stroller to a quiet corner of the underpass where the murals glowed under the moonlight. The air was heavy with jasmine from a nearby vendor's cart, the distant hum of traffic a reminder of the city's unrelenting pulse. Adebayo took Ifeoma's hand, his thumb tracing the gold band beside her engagement ring. 5 years, Ife, he said, his voice low, thick with emotion. "You made me whole under this bridge." Ifeoma's eyes glistened, her smile soft as she leaned against him. Adiz asleep in her arms, Chikwudi and Tund dozing in the stroller. "And you gave me a home," she whispered, her voice catching. "From here to forever." They stood together, the bridge's concrete pillars framing their family, the fairy lights casting their shadows on the murals. The triplets' soft breaths mingled with the lagoon breeze, a melody of love and resilience. Lagos roared above, its traffic, its gossip, its dreams. But under the bridge, their story was etched in every mural, every book, every life they'd touched. The underpass, once a place of survival, was now their forever. A sanctuary where a chance encounter had built a legacy of love, with 3 little heirs to carry it forward under the stars.